Today we're doing section 4.5, day 3, and we're going to discuss how to graph cosine. So the general form for cosine is y equals a cosine of the quantity bx minus c and a plus d, on the outside. So you're going to notice several similarities today. The only thing that's going to be different is when I go to actually obtain the picture. So the way we find the amplitude, the period, starting point, all of that is going to be exactly the same. So the only thing that's different is our x1 value is now our max or our min. Our x2 value is now an x-intercept. Our x3 value is a min or a max. Our x4 value is an x-intercept, and our x5 value is a max or a min. So the process to obtain the information is exactly the same. It's just the actual plotting of the points that would be different today. So here I have y equals 3 cosine of 4 theta. Theta and x can be used interchangeably. On your paper, it says a equals, b equals, and c equals. So a equals 3, b equals 4, and c would be 0. So the amplitude is our a value, which is 3. Our starting point is c over b, so 0 over 4. Our period is 2 pi over b, so our period will reduce to be pi over 2. And to find the values between our x values is period divided by 4. So we keep change flip. So pi over 2 times 1 over 4. So the value that we are adding each time is pi over 8. So my starting point is 0, so my x1 is 0. 0 plus pi over 8 will be pi over 8. x3 will be 2 pi over 8, which we can reduce to be pi over 4. Then we get 3 pi over 8. And lastly, 4 pi over 8, which can reduce to be pi over 2. And now that we have all this information, the last thing we need to do is get this on our graph. So again, my x1 value is 0, but because it's cosine, I'm now going to be up at either a max or a min. And because the amplitude is a positive 3, we're going to be at a max. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. So my graph is a little bit different than yours. You have 4 little blocks in between each line. I have 5 little blocks, so I'll kind of adjust accordingly. So pi over 8 is an x-intercept. Pi over 4 is a min. 3 pi over 8 is an intercept. And we finish at pi over 2 at a max. Oops, that last dot's in the wrong spot. And so is that one. Sorry, I have to go down 3, and this goes up 3. Okay, so here is our picture. Now yours your picture is going to look a little different than mine because your graph is spaced differently. So yours is going to be a lot taller, but the idea is the same. Beneath your graph, let's just talk about domain and range. So this picture will go forever. So my domain is negative infinity to infinity. My range is going to bounce between negative 3 and a positive 3, and those are both included. Okay, for the second example, we have y equals negative cosine of 2 theta. So a is negative 1, b is 2, and c is technically our 0 if I wrote it like that. So my amplitude is negative 1. My starting point is 0 over 2, which is 0. My period is 2 pi over b, which is pi, and then period over 4. So my x1 value is my starting point, which is 0, and I'm adding period over 4, which is pi over 4 each time. So pi over 4, this will be 2 pi over 4, which I can reduce to be pi over 2. Then I'll have 3 pi over 4, and lastly 4 pi over 4, which can reduce to be pi. So to make our picture, because our amplitude is negative 1, we're going to be starting at a minimum. So Now my x1 value is at a minimum of -1. So if this is 0 and this is pi over 2, halfway would be pi over 4. So your pi over 4 is going to fall on an actual line because you only have 4 blocks in between each value. I have 5. So my period over, or pi over 4 is right there. Pi over 2 will be at a maximum. My halfway point, which is 3 pi over 4, is there. And then down to a minimum. And because we have room, we can do more than one period's worth. So we're going to keep this pattern going. So we have intercept, max, intercept, and min. And then you just go ahead and connect it. Okay. And let's just talk about the domain and the range. So again, this picture will go forever in both directions. So our domain is -infinity to infinity. The range will be from -1 to 1, and those values are included. So that's all for today. We'll do some practice on this tomorrow, and I hope that this isn't terribly new because I believe you do learn this in Algebra 2.